Olá, amigos da TV Mundo Maior. Começa agora o programa Ciência e Espiritualidade. Hoje nós vamos dar continuidade às nossas entrevistas realizadas com o professor Amit Goswami. O professor Amit Goswami já é muito conhecido no meio científico, pois ele foi um dos pioneiros a inserir a questão da espiritualidade dentro da ciência. Ele é PhD em Física Quântica pela Universidade de Calcutá, na Índia, e professor emérito na cadeira de Física Quântica pela Universidade do Oregon, que fica nos Estados Unidos. No nosso programa de hoje, nós vamos ver um pouquinho mais sobre a entrevista, falando sobre a não-localidade relacionada ao Espiritismo e também sobre a autotransformação e como que nós nos relacionamos com a ideia de suplementação. Vamos à entrevista.
Exploring a little bit more, because we are here in this interview for a TV that is part of a big religion in Brazil called Spiritism. Spiritism was codified in France in 1840s, and then it is the only tradition I know, the Western tradition I know, that integrates Christianism with the belief in reincarnation, and also we believe in these fields of transformation with different levels of our process of ascendance. And then probably people watching us are familiar with this idea of influence and being influenced by incarnated and not incarnated beings. Can you explore a little bit on this non-locality and how you relate it with your studies and experience with this approach?
Well, the Spiritists are quite familiar with me because, I have spoken to Spiritist Medical Congress. I just actually, my wife and I both were speakers at their annual convention in Washington, D.C., just this, about 3 months ago. The idea of non-locality is very important. So, for example, one of the basic ideas about Spiritism is reincarnation. Reincarnation has a scientific basis based on non-locality. It turns out that while we live, we have two kinds of memory. One is strictly local in the brain. This is about the content of what happens in our mind. We think various things, or content of what makes ourselves, like so-and-so was born in so-and-so city, so-and-so year, and so forth. Those are kind of knowledge that stays in the brain and dies with the brain. But there is another kind of learning that we do that develops our character, a pattern of habits. Somebody becomes a mathematician, somebody becomes an artist, somebody is an architecture. These are all different ways of thinking. Mm-hmm. Somebody is a politician. These different ways of thinking gives a person a character, not personality. Personality has a lot of falsity in it. Personality includes the mask that we put on to present a picture that we are not. I'm talking about the real learning, real patterns of habit that we have that we cannot help. They just happen because we have practiced them over the years and we pick up that conditioning. Those patterns are not recorded in the brain. They're connected, but those patterns are recorded non-locally, non-local memory. In ancient times, they used the Sanskrit word akasha, beyond space and time, akashic memory. So this is very good. This is a completely scientific explanation of what happens in reincarnation. If somebody in the future is sharing with me the same akashic memory that I use, then that person can surely be called my reincarnation. Mm-hmm. It's not that the person is going to inherit my content of my thinking, although that could happen too. That's straightforward non-local communication. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, this person will have the same kind of advantage of the learning that I have done. For example, in this life, if I've learned about love, that person will be much more mature about loving, whereas I had to struggle. Right?
And how a person can be aware of its own self-process of transformation, not being trapped on this karmic pattern from the past, and embody and start bringing new meaning for life and transforming himself. What is the main aspect of self-transformation based on non-locality?
So what happens initially, as we go on in this life of many reincarnations, what happens initially is that we have a tendency of being conditioned, as we all know. This is our problem, how to overcome the conditioning. And then we have creativity. There are two kinds of creativity. We have a kind of creativity which is just problem solving. Mm-hmm. And that does not engage our deepest levels of capacity, deepest levels of consciousness. It's still superficial. I call it situational creativity. And then we have fundamental creativity, which is where we really engage with the deepest capacity that we have. We engage the supramental capacity, our supramental level of intelligence. So we go through many incarnations just by struggling through the conditioning. Then we start investigating creativity. And then we start investigating fundamental creativity. Mm-hmm. So depending on where we are in that spectrum, we become aware of meanings of life. Mm-hmm. These questions initially are completely dormant, because when we are just conditioning, then we depend on what is happening with us. Mm-hmm. We depend on other people to tell us what the meaning is. Mm-hmm. As you have noticed, majority of our people, they are so easily manipulated, right? Because they are always learning from other people. They don't have the capacity they have not found themselves yet. Mm-hmm. Unless you have, as an adult, an experience of creativity. How do you know that any opinion is your own opinion? Because you have so many other people's opinion that you just don't know who you are, how you think, what is your original contribution. Mm-hmm. So that is the first inkling of meaning, this experience of adult creativity. And that does happen. When that happens, then we become, for the first time, aware that there is such a thing as that can be called meaning processing, mm-hmm. which I can personalize. It's a surprise, because my personal meaning can be different from others. It's a tremendous surprise. I can make a contribution. My thought can disturb the universe. It's a tremendous experience. Mm-hmm. So we grow from these experiences, and then there is no stopping us. This tendency for creativity will grow. After every incarnation, we come back with more creativity, and we want to engage with these meanings of life, meaning of the universe, and that's how civilization grows.
Mm-hmm. And how relate this idea of supramental, and in one side having this personal meaning which creates this possibility of co-creating the universe, but at the same time not being egoic in it and feeling being part of something wonderful and tremendous happening in the universe?
Yes, now you are asking even deeper questions. So, speaking in a sort of development, initially we are very much intoxicated by this personal meaning and the power of finding personal meaning. We want to impose that persona upon others. That is the goal initially. So after we have done that, we notice that this particular approach, where I immediately become inflated, intoxicated with my accomplishments, actually harm my future accomplishment. I cannot accomplish any more because I get too busy taking advantage of the little investigation that I did that was original. For example, I may be a writer. So I write one very good novel, which came from my gut-wrenching creative experience. And then the novel sold a lot. I became very successful. I started giving talks, interviews, radio, television, what have you. My book made into a movie. I became even more famous. So where do I have the time to get into creative experience anymore? Because creativity requires a process, some time, relaxed living. So I don't have any time for that. So what I did have that one good idea. So I just start combining it with little different situations and different verbs, different characters, and start producing novels of that sort. I become a novel writer as a machine which just changes a few things and writes the same stuff over and over. I make a lot of money, and this goes on for quite a while. Then I question myself, but this is so boring. And then, again, I get into creativity. So it's a lot of learning that way that takes before we realize that we really have to question this accomplishment orientation. Mm-hmm. Why do I want this so much of this accomplishment and this adoration that we get from it? Why do I become involved so much with that? Because creativity is much more rewarding, much more interesting, much more enlivening to me. So why can't I make a balance? So at that point, we become aware that there is also inner creativity. Not only creativity can be used and must be used for making products for people to enjoy, people to share with, but also inner creativity which will transform me. The way that I want always this ego gratifications, the pleasures. Instead, if we can make a little bit of balance between the outer and the inner, but that requires inner growth. I have to slow down inside. I have to recognize that what I accomplish is just that, what I accomplish, but it's not really making my consciousness any deeper, any richer.
Vamos agora fazer um breve intervalo e nós voltamos já já.